Welcome to the Tech Perspective podcast presented by Flatiron School, a show featuring diverse perspectives from people all across the tech industry landscape. My name is Jelani. I am your host, and I am here with a very special guest, CEO and co-founder of Career Carver, Rubén Harris.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you being here, man.
Excited about this.
Yeah, man. Well, first, I gotta start off by saying congratulations on the Series B, $40 million raised. That is, let me just clap it up on camera. My editor is not gonna be happy about these noises, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Congratulations on that. That was huge. How has your life changed? Because I seen you doing a lot of press. How's your life changed since that Series B?
Um, I'm more grateful. I was grateful before. Um, I feel the greater sense of responsibility. Um, I still am in athleisure clothing, so that hasn't changed because I still like to train and I like to still stay grounded. I'll say in general, we have to um, we have to really understand that what got us here won't get us there. And so, in order to get to the next level, it's not just about hiring people. Like your whole organizational structures have to change. Um, the way that you keep pulse of what's going on in an organization is a lot harder now because there's way more people. So you got to leverage tools that really you're not just going to be doing pulse surveys here and there. You got to really know what's happening in real time,
Yeah,
which is challenging when you have hundreds of people that work in the company.
right.
Um, how do you keep the culture alive and strong in the company when 100% of your company is remote? How do you bridge like in person and online so that people do get that sense of community? Because I'm from the South and I like breaking bread with people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there's a lot of questions that come up, and the short answer is just um, I am working with executive coaches. I'm working with my board. I'm working with our investors to really not just level myself up as a leader that wants to be the greatest CEO of all time, but I also am working on making sure our whole team has access to what they need to develop into the best versions of themselves as well.
I love that line. What got you there isn't gonna take you there. That's a
Yeah.
that's a bar right there. We was talking about the
hmm
bar on my shirt.
The bars,
That
yes.
was a bar right
hmm
for
hmm
those of our viewers that aren't familiar with Career Karma, um, give me just a little bit about the what the company does, because the way that I look at it, and I mean this in like the most respectful way, is that it's almost like the Bumble or Match.com for career changers. You know, feel free to use that marketing, by the way, if that's a freebie.
I like that one. That's a good one.
That's a
That's what the
freebie right there.
Bumble, the Match.com for career change. That's a good one. It's similar to like some of the analogies that we've used, like the Booking.com for your career and things like that. But I like that one a lot because Bumble does have like Bumble matching for friends and business platform. Um, the short answer is we are a career navigation platform that serves as a guide for people that are seeking more in their career. So if you are seeking job training, we are the easiest way to find a job training program online, like Flatiron School, and others. Um, but it's important for us to not just recommend schools that are aligned with the jobs that you want. It's important for us to make sure that you are connected with people that can help you make decisions, right? Serving up information alone is not enough, right? And so after we recommend a school for you to match with, we will actually put you in a live audio room so you can talk to other people directly that might be from Brooklyn or might be from Atlanta, that can help you make those decisions and answer questions that you have. And then when you get to the job search, it can connect you directly to companies. Um, a lot of people think that they have to have money to go to school, or that they have to take out a loan. That is not always the case. Money is pretty much never an issue. There's always going to be a way to either get a scholarship or defer tuition or income share agreement or get an employer to pay for it. What you really need is the desire to learn and the desire to want to make a change in your life. And if you're looking to make a career switch or to up level yourself, you just go to Career Karma, and that's what we do.
You mentioned something about people once they start looking for a new career. One of the things that you do is hook them up with a squad for them to stay motivated, get a sense of community. And people are going to get sick of me saying this on this podcast, but I'm going to be talking about community being probably the number one thing, the number one priority, not just in career changing, but in business and in this marketplace. Community plays such an integral role. One of the things that I learned, like doing a deep dive into metaverse and NFTs, is that entire economy is 100% community driven. So for Career Karma, I'm wondering, when you were helping found this company, where did the sense that community was really a priority come from?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a good question. It came from our own journey. Um, like I told you, I grew up in Atlanta. I met my first co-founder, Archer Meister, in Atlanta. We were working at the same company. And he has a twin brother, so he was like, "You like me, you're gonna like him." Then we became fast friends.
Yeah.
And that was like the initial squad. Like we met like 10 years ago. We just haven't stopped hanging out, and it still feels like it was yesterday. And we would just talk about things, and we would talk about what our goals were together. And if you fast forward to, when we made the decision that we wanted to get into the tech industry, we knew that we needed to learn how to code. We knew that we needed to talk to users and know how to raise money. And what we realized is that we needed to move to San Francisco at the time. It wasn't. We'll talk about remote work in a second.
Right.
At the time, if you wanted to break into tech, you had to move to San Francisco. So we made the decision that we're gonna quit our jobs and move to the Bay Area. And that was scary if you do it alone, but not scary if you do it together, because if I lose my job or I'm stuck, I can always crash on your couch.
Right.
And the same thing with everybody else. So
Right.
if you move as a unit together, like I mean, Dame Dash talks about this. I don't know if you've seen that clip with Dame Dash and DJ Clue, where they're talking about how it's important to not just have one head of a crew, right? Because if that crew member is gone,
Yeah.
then the whole thing shatters. Like
Right.
there should be multiple people in a crew that are leaders so that you could hold each other down no matter what happens. If you haven't seen that clip, you should definitely see the clip.
Absolutely.
But going back to this piece about squads, um, we started talking about climbing mountains, and you can do a little hike by yourself, but when you want to climb the highest mountain like Everest, you can't climb Everest alone. Like there's maybe like a few people that have done it, but most of the time you're gonna need a crew. You're gonna need Sherpas. You gotta need people that throw the rope down. You gotta need people that shown you the path before, so
Right.
that you can go to where you want to go. And that's where the early idea of squads and community came from. Is that uh, if you normally get your career advice from your family and friends that tell you what to do, but if your family and friends never experience what the current trajectories are, then you need to find your career advice from people that do know what they're talking about, like a family and strangers in our community. But also, you might feel out of place because don't know anybody that's gone down that path. So
Right.
if I can immediately give you that sense of community from day one, you're not going to feel like an imposter anymore. So it's like as soon as you come to Career Karma, not only can you find career advice, you should be able to find your people immediately that put you at ease and less stress.
Absolutely, and it's almost tribal to us as humans to move
Yes.
as a pack, right? It was a
Yes.
survival tactic, when we were first, walking as humans, right? And it's followed us all the way throughout our DNA. And I'm curious, like, because of that community aspect, sort of in the beginning of Career Karma, was there a certain moment or a certain period of time with Career Karma that you felt, oh wow, we're really onto something here. Like this can really go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moments like that. Speaking on the travel piece of things that you just said, I think the pandemic really shown that a lot. Like when the pandemic first hit,
Yeah.
um, and everybody really took the quarantine stuff very seriously. Um, what was interesting is just like how people were seeking community. Like they were seeking connection with others because they couldn't leave the house.
Right.
Part of the reason why Clubhouse grew to millions of people so quickly
That's a
was because people were at home and they had nothing else to do
yep.
and they were seeking community,
That's a good
right?
that's a good point. And they didn't have to get their hair
That's
done or nothing. They
that was literally like why like people were finally being able to connect. Like it was like, oh man, I got what I'm looking for, right? Now that we are, you know, starting to ease up some of those types of things, you know, bridging the online and the offline is going to be very interesting. Audio has always been a thing, especially for gamers to connect with each other. Um, and the way that we knew that we were onto something is, you know, when I first moved to the Bay Area, um, we wrote about our story uh, in a story called Breaking into Startups that we ended up writing a couple more pieces. One, which was the reality of breaking into startups. The first product you build is yourself. And then the third one was the Breaking into Startups Manifesto. And that eventually turned into a podcast that featured people like you and me that figured out how to break into tech and found community. And what was really cool about that is that schools started reaching out to us saying, hey, you all have a big audience. Um, we want to pay to get access to that audience so we can help the people that are listening that want to make a change, right? Kind of like how you say, hey, look, you know, Earn Your Leisure, Market Mondays, I'm on it every day, right?
exactly. Yep.
There's probably people that are like, hey, for the people that are listening to this every day, like, what are ways that we can help the listeners? What's cool about podcasts and what we're doing here is like, people are listening to what we're talking about right now. They're probably
Right.
like, yo, I want community. How do I get community?
Right.
Download Career Karma, right? So it's like that type of like thing. And so we started testing it. So what did we do? We literally started breaking into startups. And what I mean by that is we leveraged our relationships with companies that were listening to it and been like, hey, GitHub will let us host an event there for free. Slack will let us host an event there for free. And we're like, hey, we live in the Bay Area, all these tech workers here. How do we open it up for the people across the bridge that's never seen a tech company,
Right.
right?
Right.
So like I would do events at Slack and with women who code and fill it up with 150 women that wanted to break into tech. And I had 5 women on stage that didn't just get jobs through boot camps at tech companies like DoorDash and Lyft, but also at non-tech companies like Nordstrom, right? And then when that event is happening, the security guard downstairs, that's also a woman, is like, what's going on up there? Like, let me call somebody to cover my shift so I could go up there. And then she ends up enrolling in a boot camp, right?
Yeah.
So it started to become like, oh wow, we could really create a movement, right?
Right.
Like how did a lot of like we're in Black History Month, Black Future Month, Black President Month. Like we're doing this whole campaign right now called Black to the Future. Like how did our forefathers and mothers like really lead, right? What would Tech Malcolm X look like today? But how would Dr. Martin Luther King use social media, right? Malcolm X
Wow.
is very famous for like fishing and going from city to city and talking to people. Martin Luther King was always on the road going to people. And so, you
Right.
know, physical events are great,
Yep.
but it's not as scalable. You're not going to reach 1 billion people doing that. And so now that we have, um, now that we started seeing those manual physical elements taking off, we have created elements in our community through software to be able to scale it across the world.
What is interesting about what you're saying is that you almost had like an entrepreneurial mindset when you had this podcast going. You said, well, clearly there's a problem here that we can solve. And you did that with Career Karma. I'm wondering, uh, did you Did you always have an entrepreneurial mindset? Is that where you felt like you were going to be destined to go, even in when you were doing investment banking, when you were playing the cello as a youngin? Like, did you still feel like you were going to end up as an entrepreneur anyway?
I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My mother can tell you that from 4 years old. Um, she was actually shocked that I even got a job when I left school, which was the investment banking thing.
Yeah.
Um, as an artist, you're essentially your own entrepreneur as well, like because you know you eat what you not even kill. You just like have to hustle your own shows
Right.
and sell your own merch in order to like survive, right? You have to have 1,000 true fans. Um, but I understood that like the importance of skill development and network before you start something, right? And so um, this is very important because a lot of our media. So part of the reason why we talked about the podcast is like, I told you about Malcolm X. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, which is one of my favorite books. But one of the quotes that Malcolm X talks about is how media is the most powerful entity in the world,
Yep.
and that's not just publications. Every company, you probably heard every company is a media company. Every human is a media company, right?
Yep.
Because personal brand is important. An employer will Google your name. If you're an entrepreneur, people will Google your name. Google my name,
Absolutely.
see what pops up, right? I have to brand myself and control my own narrative because if we don't tell our own stories, other people will tell stories about us.
Yep.
It's either
Yep.
program or be programmed, right? And so like when I when I was with my co-founders, we also were mindful of time, right? So we're like, okay, we do want to be entrepreneurs in the future, but we need skill sets. We got to break into tech first. And rather than work at the same company or go to the same boot camp, let's go to different ones and let's take a 3-year approach, kind of
Nice.
like investment banking.
Nice.
So at the time, Archer and team there was like not a lot of boot camps. So they were like front end and back end. So one of them went to Hack Ratchet, the other one went to App Academy. And they were like, all right, we can be in the boot camp at the same time and share curriculum so we can learn together. We could just both be full stack, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that's that twin stuff, right? So
Yeah,
they did
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then when we graduated or they graduated, they were like, all right, cool. Let's not work for the same company. Let's work for different companies, get the skill set, get the network. Archer worked at Funding Circle, which is a financial marketplace. Timo was at Auto Trader, which is the car marketplace, and also Blipper, which is augmented reality. Then I ended up working at All School, Honor, which is a healthcare marketplace, and Hustle. And we did that for 3 years while running the podcast, while organizing events, and eventually came together once we had credibility just on some organic for the people in the streets stuff.
That's beautiful. That does sound organic, and man, like with certain sectors of tech, it just I don't know, or just businesses in general, they just kind of happen organically when you're doing stuff that you actually enjoy doing. Um, you had a quote about your experience at the Y Combinator, and you said managing your psychology is one of the biggest things you have to do on this journey. Can you expound on that? Because when I heard that, I was like, that is super super interesting because I'm of the mindset that if you can control your emotions, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I even wrote that same piece in our that original Breaking Your Startups post. I actually pulled out the importance of managing your psychology. I actually got that from Ben Horowitz's book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, where he said that's really important as a CEO. Let's take it another step further. I mean, you and I are both black men, right? Black men, um, we often got to be strong for people, so we like to
Mm.
suppress our our emotions. We don't want to show. We think that. I mean, I'm not gonna speak for you, but I know historically for me, sometimes I see that as a sign of weakness. Um, but I'm starting to learn like it's actually a source of power to like be able to feel all emotions and show all emotions, um, because it's real humanity, it's real relatability, um, and But to your point, you do have to be aware of what spectrum that you're in, and you have to
Yeah.
be able to control it, but not in a way that dismisses it. A lot of times when people say, I control my emotions, they are actually dismissing
Yep.
their emotions. Actually, that's a good bar. I'm gonna tweet that one. So I'm like, there's a big difference. Like, like that's a very big difference. There's a difference between
Yeah.
that because um, if you can acknowledge it's kind of like that's why so many people talk about meditation because you are observing things that are happening without an opinion. And it's kind of like do you train like any martial arts? You look like real fit. Do you do any of that?
Basketball,
Like,
brother. No, ain't no
okay, cool.
martial arts here.
Basketball. Okay, that's what's up. But like with jujitsu, for example, right? If you are training and you're just like in a bad position and you're getting your behind whooped, you're
Yeah.
not supposed to panic. You just have to like tell yourself like, what position am I in? How can I reverse this position? Right? How can I get back to control? Um, and as a leader that is in the tech industry, something that I've learned is that perfection is the enemy of execution. And most of the time when you're running an organization or when you're breaking into tech, um, things won't be perfect. And if you're not comfortable amidst chaos, or if you are a super clean, neat freak person, you're gonna go crazy and you're not gonna operate well. You have to understand that like there's strong opinions loosely held. There's structure. You have to be malleable. You have to be calm in the center of a storm so that you can make clear decisions. And you mentioned what's changed now that we've raised 40 million. We have more options. We can do so many things now.
Yeah.
We so many things. We have the capital, we have the investors, we have the resources.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things for you to do as not just an entrepreneur, but someone breaking the tech, like when you're in Flatiron School, there's a lot of things you can do as well. But what should you do? Focus and do pretty much the same thing every day. Wake up, drink your coffee, study,
Yep.
talk to your significant others and loved ones, go to sleep, and just do that until you're done. Right? And so, like, with career comm, it's very similar. It's like there's so many other things that we can do,
Hmm.
but like staying focused of what we've built allows us to like continue getting that compounding growth on what we've already established. Um, and we can, selectively look at new opportunities, but beware of getting distracted. Um, so yeah.
That's interesting because when you mentioned jujitsu, when you mentioned the cello, when I think of those two disciplines, now granted I've done neither, but when I look at them, I think of them requiring like a certain level of discipline and a certain level of patience. And in business, especially with founders, what I've just in speaking to some of them, what I've noticed is they're heavily disciplined, very disciplined group, but not so much patient. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a healthy level of discipline, patience, and emotional control as well, right? As a cellist, I have to be able to bring you into the music. I have to be able to have you on the edge of your seat when before I play the next note. Um, I have to, do all kinds of things to really like draw you into what you normally wouldn't listen to. Like you don't want to just hear somebody playing notes. Like I have to make you enchanted,
Mm,
and that requires a certain level of emotional strength. Your question was about patience. The only difference between startups and anything else is growth and momentum, right? Um, there's a lot of other differences, but that's one of the main ones. Um,
yeah.
I say that because um, it's one of my favorite quotes about speed that says, "Faster, faster until the thrill of speed overcomes the fear of death." It's a motorcycle quote. Um, but just because you've overcome fear of death doesn't mean that death isn't around the corner. And so
Right.
you got to be aware of what can kill you, right?
Right.
And so I think it's important for you to recognize that time is the most valuable resources that you have. We all have 24 hours a day, and you actually do have time. Everybody says that they don't have time. I'll explain how you have time, right? It's 24/7, right? What is that? 168 hours. Everybody has 168 hours in a week. Most people work 40 hours a week. You still got 128 hours left,
Yep.
right? Okay, let's say that you sleep, 5 to 8 hours a day. Let's say 40 hours a day, right? You still got over 60 hours left,
Right.
right? What are you doing with those? Let's say you work 80 hours. Now you got still 20 hours left,
Right.
right? That's enough to do a lot of things. That's half of what most people's work week is
Right.
that you're not using. That's like most people don't know where their time is going. And so I say all of this to get back to your question about patience and speed. Um, I am not the most patient person.
I knew we were coming to that. I knew we were coming to that.
I'm definitely not the most patient person. Uh, but I recognize when it's important to slow down
Yeah.
because I've done a good time audit.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say this too is like you see it, especially when people break into tech. They've talked to Flatiron, they've talked to their mission team, they know that they're supposed to go there, but then they hesitate for so long. They'll watch all their friends do it. It takes them like a year. Then their
Yeah.
friend like already got a job when they could have started last year. And I'm like, why are you waiting? Like you're literally wasting all this time
Yeah.
that can change your like if you start today, it's the beginning of February. You can have a job by summer. You
Facts.
can have a job by summer if
Facts.
you go all in, but you
Yeah.
have to make that decision.
Yeah. That hesitation is real. And I listen, and I don't want this to come off as if I don't understand the limitations of people, right? So it's you got family obligations, you have financial reasons, you got commitments, all of that stuff. That is 100% true. But here's the thing. Over time, those things are likely not going to become less impactful on your life. They're probably going to be more impactful. So carving out a sliver of time to be able to commit to something that's going to change the entire trajectory of your life is super, super critical, and prioritizing that time. And to that point you made about everybody has the same amount of time, I'm going to tell you my biggest key to anytime I feel any level of lethargicness is I think to myself, Jay-Z and I both have the exact same amount of time. And this guy
There it
has
is.
done so much. Like he and I, if there's one thing in common is he and I have the exact same time. So, you can't be out here wasting it. I'm sounding passionate because it's real. You really cannot spend any more time wasting, because you even think of like, I'm 30 years old. I use this a lot with some friends of mine that start talking about how old they are and stuff like that, because we're all pretty much in the same age range. They're like, yo, I'm 30. I'm like, do you know that you've also spent more time as a child than you have as an adult still at 30? Even if you go up to, I'll give you 18 versus 12. If you're 36, you've only spent half of your life as an adult, and barely an adult too, because 18 is a little bit of a stretch for an adult. So I'm 100% with you on people maximizing their time, sometimes in spite of their circumstances. Yep. See, we out here preaching today, man.
Exactly, we got to.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you, because I think the flip side of ambition, which is obviously clear that you have, because I heard you kind of snuck it in kind of quick early on. I want to be the greatest CEO ever. I heard that. I took a mental note of that. And no doubt that you're well on your way there. But where is that? Because you said you're impatient, because you have these ambitions, I'm wondering, how do you balance between running this company and knowing when it is time for you personally to take a break? Do you suffer at all from burnout?
I don't really suffer a lot from, well, that's not true. I mean, I don't really suffer a lot from burnout because I know that I've aligned myself on purpose, but I do suffer from, I don't take breaks, bro. Like, it's actually like really bad. Like, I went to sleep at 5 a.m. yesterday, and back up, and I did a midnight run last night, and like, just like, I really enjoy night running, and then
Yeah.
I just, my mind's always racing. I do have to get better at understanding the importance of sleep and getting, better at doing nothing. No, I mean, I did grow up in as a Seventh-day Adventist, so sundown Friday, sundown Saturday is supposed to be my time to focus on God and take a break. Um, but sometimes I just want to do the Lord's work, and I'm still out in the community doing stuff, you know. And so
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
and so the reason why I say things about like greatest CEO and stuff like that is it's less about like comparing myself to other people. It's more about like what problem are you solving, right? And so the problem that we're solving related to helping people switch careers is one of the after healthcare is probably the greatest problem that
Yeah.
you could ever solve,
Yeah.
right? Because none of these other things that you want to do related to like I don't care what you say, space exploration, climate change, curing cancer, it all requires human beings, right? There's a reason why LinkedIn had a 20 plus billion-dollar outcome, right? They're a organization that's been around for 16 years that's focused on white collar workers. They've got to 700 million people, which is great. But
Yeah.
most of the world is not white collar. Most of the world is blue collar. And I also don't like those terms, blue collar and white collar.
Yeah.
I like
Same.
I like ascending and descending, but just most of the world never went to college. Most of the world, if they had a LinkedIn profile, it, they wouldn't look good on LinkedIn because it's not designed that way. And I'm not taking shots at LinkedIn. I respect LinkedIn,
Yeah.
but when you think about workforce development, there's Adecco, which is huge, bigger than LinkedIn. There's they acquired General Assembly, which is a boot camp, by the way, for the people that don't know. There is um, Randstad, there's Manpower Group, there's Recruit Holdings, all bigger companies than even LinkedIn, right? And I say all of this just because, um, assuming that we stay on the trajectory that we stay on, focus on workforce development, we will naturally be one of the largest companies that's ever existed. And so, as a leader that would be running an organization like that with my team and my co-founders, um, that has an international global presence, because you can't help a billion people only focus on the US, um, we will all be one of the most powerful executives that exists.
And I like the way that you position that because earlier you mentioned uh, the feeling that you feel after the Series B round of funding is responsibility. So when you say greatest CEO of all time, it's also I'll be carrying one of the greatest responsibilities of all time, and that requires me to be the greatest CEO of all time.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think a lot of people don't spend enough time thinking about their purpose. I spend a lot of time with my executive coach. Um, you probably I don't know how many people have heard the Gunna album and Pushing P. And her and
Yeah,
a lot of people that P is a term that a lot of
yeah,
people are talking about in reference to when something's going well or something's cool or
right,
you know like you say that's P or whatever.
right.
My coach is really working with me on something called the three P's, where it's like, what's the purpose of my role? What are my priorities? And what's in my power, right? So, what's the purpose of your role? If that's your purpose, what are your three priorities? If those are your three priorities, what's in your power to make decisions? What power do you have to make decisions that meet your priorities and your purpose? Also, ask yourself, what could derail me from my purpose. Like, this is all a process that we call good alignment, right? And so, related to responsibility, it's very important for, and I'm not going to go through the whole details, but like
Yeah.
it's very important for me to not just do that for myself, but for make sure my whole team is aligned and think about what are the ways that you cannot make it. You know, one of my mentors, Balaji Srinivasan, he calls this the idea maze, right? We talked about speed and we talked about death, right? Death is like you when you lay out an idea maze, you got to lay out all the wrong turns you can make that could lead to falling into a pit or stepping on a bomb or just going to a dead end, literally. Um, and you got to like really visualize to realize, right? And when you ask about what changed, to your point, like it's not just knowing that you have the responsibility, but psychologically, you got to realize that, like, you know, people are literally like in this company helping not just other people change their life, but we have people on the team that like are getting married or having kids or having 401k plans and healthcare and all these things that like you have to think about whenever you start an organization that are very, very deep, which is why, you know, I take people very, very seriously. Like our VP of People, Jessica Lamb, is leading an amazing effort to like really build out all of our functions on the employee experience side with Britt, and on the compliance side with Roshana, on the recruiting side with Jenny and Charm and Justin, and they're so good at culture and keeping a pulse of everything, and and I think we're not just setting the standard about how we do things internally at Career Karma or how we help people find their jobs, but I think that some of the practices that we're coming up with will be the new standard for the entire tech industry soon.
Man, that sounds dope, man. I want to go back to something you mentioned mentorship a lot during this podcast. What role has mentorship played for you in your growth?
Mentorship is everything. Um, it is it is foolish to assume that there is such thing as a self-made person. There is no such thing as a self-made person, including Jay-Z, right? Jay-Z has lots of mentors,
Yep.
right? You see him around Buffett. You see him around like every like Jack Dorsey. You see
Yep.
him like you see him around all these people so that he knows how to move and shake in sports, like with Rich Paul and like all these other people. Like they're really LeBron. Like he's just really understanding how to move and how to stay afloat. He'll
Yep.
be in the corporate circles. He'll be with New York Times, understanding the media,
Yep.
right? He'll be with the art people to really understand that side of things, and like the Met Gala and Jeff Koons and Tom Ford. He'll be with Linkin Park to talk about that genre of music,
Right.
right? So
Right.
there's like so many things that you got to do if you want to have range. And speaking of range, there's a really great book called Range by David Epstein. That's the main title. It's called Range, but the subtitle is How Generalists Triumph in a Highly Specialized Role, a World, Highly Specialized World. I say that because um, I have range, and I I recognize that the ultimate version of me, and I would argue the ultimate version of everybody these days, will be a Frankenstein of a bunch of experiences put together into Jelani Thomas, right?
Right.
Jelani Thomas is currently at Flatiron doing podcasting,
Right.
but there's probably in product, and there's probably other things that you're going to do in your life that will ultimately make you who you are, right?
Right.
You are not defined by your occupation anymore. And something that I talk about a lot to get back to your question is a personal board of directors, right?
Mm. I like that.
Not a board of directors, a personal board of directors. And
Right.
I'm not just making, if you think I'm making this up, Look up my post that I wrote in 2014 when I pointed to the stands and I told you what I was going to do, right? This was before we had an actual board because CareerCom was only 3 years old, so you could check the receipts. A personal board of directors is very important so that you have the guides that can fill in the gaps that you don't have to get you to where you want to go, right? But you have to have a dream for yourself. You have to have a vision for yourself, right? You have to take time to think.
Right.
We talked about, time. We talked about hesitation on making a move to break into tech. And for sure, one of the biggest things with people that come from lower income backgrounds and poor people is like, we don't have a lot of time.
Yep. Yep.
It's a really good movie by Justin Timberlake. Speaking of Justin Timberlake and Jay-Z, Justin Timberlake has a book called In Time. I mean, a movie called In
Oh
Time.
yeah, I saw that movie.
Movie
Yeah,
called
yeah,
In Time, right? And what's
yeah.
the point of the movie? So for the people that don't know, it's a movie where the currency is time. There's no money that exists. And the
Right.
rich people got nothing but time, and the poor people are always running out of it.
Yep.
Going back to your question, I recognize that if you have a lot of, um, if your conditions don't give you time to think, it's hard to really actually visualize what you want for yourself, to really decide the types of mentors that you want. Um, but if you do have that time and you have the ability to create for yourself, actively seek that out because mentorship is everything. And don't just look at for capital M mentors, look for little m mentors. Like we, I think we talked about Elon Musk. No, we didn't talk about
No,
Elon
no,
Musk.
no.
Like Elon Musk could help me right now as a mentor, but like, would he really? It's probably easier for me to be mentored by somebody that just raised their Series C that's in the workforce development space. That's probably a better mentor for
Right.
me right now, right?
Right.
Or, I mean, the CEO of Adecco could potentially be a good mentor, but like maybe not, right? So you
Right.
just gotta like think about it. It's a really good book that Reid Hoffman also talks about related to alliances and tours of duty. And as you think about not just mentors, but places where you can get skills and find mentors, um, that's something else to think about.
That's interesting. The concept of people not having sort of the mental space to even consider mentorship. One thing that I would say to that is because I come from the lower income background and had that same exact experience of feeling like you don't have a lot of mentors outside of maybe like your immediate family. So I would say potentially like looking for mentorship in in YouTube, like looking at YouTube as an entire
I like that.
library of mentors. Cause I know I got about 10 mentors that don't even know I exist. You know what I'm saying? So, I get inspired from just even looking up and researching guests on this podcast, yourself included. I look at guys like Jay, I look at Kobe, I look at Michael, I look at just anybody really that's sort of followed their passion and followed their ambition. So I feel like the world can be your mentor until you get to actually zone in on an actual person that you can speak to one-to-one. And, cold emailing people when you got stuff going on is not a bad idea either, especially on LinkedIn. I'm just saying. Yeah.
For sure. I really like that point about like mentors, digital mentors that you never
Right.
met. I mean, we have so much free advice that exists on the internet. I mean, YouTube is one thing, but like you can follow people on Twitter, you can be in audio rooms and literally literally just listen to people. You don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
And they can literally be your mentors. And like similar to gaming, there's people that have like long-term relationships with gamers that they never met before. They're like their best friends that they like
Right.
talk to every night, you know.
That's a fact. Couple more here. The old saying, like, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. I thought about that like in the terms of like a company. So when you think of the people that you're in the hiring space, I mean, you're in the hiring chair, right? Probably a little bit less so because you've kind of hired out for that. But like when you were hiring people, and you said it's more difficult to kind of navigate, like, keep maintaining a company culture. But I'm wondering, what do you look for outside of people that can just do the job? Because I think of like if I see your employees and I'm like, well, 40 of your employees are kind of like this, so I'm gonna assume leadership is like that. How do you fish for talent, and what is something that sort of stands out that you're like, I need that person on this team?
That's a really good question. I mean, we have a I love that question because we have a page that laid out. We spent a lot of time laying out our company values, which is how we how we win, how we decide, um, and just like really think about what values are really important to us. And a lot of times when people lay out their company values, um, they don't they don't it's mostly marketing. They don't really like use that as a way to hire and fire people. Like so it's like how we act, how we decide, how we win, right? And those factors actually matter. Like good examples of them is like, hey, we listen to understand and communicate effectively, like treating each other with respect and empathy, right? That's a really, really simple thing, but complicated thing because a lot of people don't listen to empathize or communicate effectively. They listen to respond, right? They don't care what you're saying. They're just like waiting for their turn, right? Um, Taking initiative and being proactive, like recognizing that like we um you don't need to wait to ask for permission, just like do it. Um
Yeah.
that's people, and you're not going to be micromanaged and you're expected to do that. Hitting targets with momentum has to do with speed, right? Where um the key word is target. Like we don't just move fast and break things. We have a goal that we're about to hit and we hit it, right?
Yep.
There's other things that are in there. Like we've paid homage to people like Nipsey. Like on the enjoy the process, we say we've had fun because the journey to accomplishing our mission is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And the marathon continues, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's certain subtle things that you can put in there where someone that really is with it, not just from a skills perspective, will be like, oh, like I understand what you did there. We have people that are protectors of the culture and the good vibes in the organization. And when you're when you're playing in the NBA, you're everybody that you talk to is talented.
Right.
They're the best of the best
Right.
from wherever they played,
Right.
right? So that's actually normal. That actually is not what gets you to join the team, right?
Mm.
It's everything else. It's
Right.
everything else. It's like same thing when you're applying to a company. Your coding skills are not going to be why the company hires you,
Right.
right? It's who you are. It's like the fact that you are, I don't know, from Brooklyn, and I see that, I don't know, this color theory in the back. Maybe you're a photographer or a painter, and you're applying for a job at Apple to work on their new iPhone. I don't know, right?
Right.
Like, or you're applying for a job at Figma to like focus on design, right? And
Right.
your value is actually not your coding skills, but the fact that like you've painted oil paintings your whole life. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Like,
Right.
like so all these non-technical things that a lot of people downplay are actually their superpowers. So like sometimes I'll be in an interview. Like I interviewed somebody recently for a role, and I saw all their amazing credentials about what they do, and I saw that they also worked at Marvel before. And the first question that I asked them was, "What's your favorite superhero?" Right? And they're like, "What?" But like that says a lot, right? If you like if you worked
Absolutely.
at Marvel and you like are passionate about superheroes, people connect to superheroes for certain reasons, right? And it really shows how you view the world. Like these superheroes are here to save the world. Like certain superpowers are going to resonate with you, and like how does that apply to the company? And like I am hiring the Avengers. I'm
Right.
Batman and Captain America. Like and together we are here as the Justice League of Tech to really like take things to the next level. So anyway.
The Justice League of Tech. I like that. Oh, man. All right. So the way that I usually end every podcast episode is I ask the same question. I can't wait to, you dropped a lot of quotes, a lot of books, a lot of jewels this episode. So I'm curious to hear, what is a quote that you personally live by?
The first one that's top of mind right now is more love, less fear. More love, less fear.
Like that.
Because um, I feel like a lot of people are scared to be great. A lot of people are scared to have those uncomfortable conversations. Um, we talked about relationships in tech and business. I just talked about this with my girlfriend as well. It's just like I said, when I die, I want our tombstones to say like more love, less fear, because there's like so many things that like these uncomfortable conversations that you don't want to have with yourself, with your loved ones, or other people that you shy away from, but lead to the breakthroughs that are necessary in your life. Um, and a lot of stuff that we talked about and related to psychology um, come from fear, right? And you know, I talked about the Justice League. Let's talk about Batman. Batman is actually scared of bats, right? I don't know if you've ever watched Batman Begins, but Batman is
Oh,
scared of bats,
yeah, you
and he had to
right.
go through a whole process to overcome his fear of bats and create a
Right.
whole superhero around conquering that fear. So I want the message for people listening to this is to take everything that you're scared of, like face it head on, create something to like turn that into a superpower, and like lean into the world with love and share your gifts with the world to make it a better place.
That's a wonderful note to leave on. I mean, I couldn't say it any better. Ruben, thank you. Before we head out, though, if people want to connect with you, where should they go?
You can find me on Twitter, um, and it's Ruben Harris, Ruben Harris, RubenHarris. You can find me on Instagram, same thing. And my email is just ruben@careerkarma.com.
Yeah, and check out careerkarma.com, especially if you're interested in changing your career. It's a lot of great content on there, a lot of great blogs about changing your career and community, which is a priority for people in this space. So with that, thank you again, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe, please like, save it, tell your friend, tell your cousin, put it in a group chat, whatever you need to do. I am Jelani, I am your host, and with that, we are out.